welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 most undervalued art rares from the Scarlet and Violet era. The reason I wanted to talk about some more undervalued cards, check out my last video if you haven't. I talked about the most undervalued Sword and Shield cards in that, is because we see the incredible hype surrounding the most recently released set, Prismatic Evolutions, and some of these sets that released right before it, such as Surging Sparks. And to be honest, I believe these cards are very inflated in value. It doesn't make sense for cards to debut and actually stay at the $600 and $400 ranges. This Umbreon being $1,500 is ridiculous in my opinion. It's a beautiful card and maybe it can get there in a year and a half, but certainly not on debut. It shouldn't be this. And so I really don't want people to be spending their savings on cards like finishing this master set or collecting 4 different evolutions, maybe even buying this Roaring Moon. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying there's some amazing options that you should consider before you go ahead and drop $100 or $200 on a card. If we're talking about Canadian, this is gotta translate this from USD to Canadian. It's going to become something absolutely insane in value. So I want to go over 10 of the cards that I believe will not break the bank, but also make beautiful additions to your collection. So without further ado, let's get into it. To start off, in number 10, we have Fezandipiti from Shrouded Fable, a very reasonable price of $6. And maybe Fezandipiti is not your favorite Pokemon, but I think the artwork speaks for itself. Fezandipiti is currently quite valuable in Shrouded Fable because it's an extremely playable card. This art rare is not exactly exploding, but the artwork itself is quite sensational. It almost reminds me of a martial arts pose on a very sleek cliff. And it almost reminds me of that scene in Kung Fu Panda where Shifu jumps up on the cliff. This card is just like a fun artwork. I love it. The detail in the cliffs and the entire sort of like savanna almost landscape with a canyon surrounding is a very unique artwork, and love sunsets. For number 9, we have Shiftry. This is quite a beloved Pokemon. I think it was introduced specifically Gen 3 in the Ruby and Sapphire era of Pokemon, and Shiftry had a few episodes dedicated to it specifically over the years. Particularly, there was this one where it captured Nurse Joy to save a bunch of Seedot, or a Nuzleaf actually, and so again, a very reasonable price, $5.56. But in particular, I love the way that this card is chaotically brilliant. It is not abstract art per se, but at the same time, it's not the standard you're sitting in some sort of like pretty background like the Fezandipiti. This one's more of a like battleground kind of card, and it's a different take on how one could draw and have collections. You might like collecting specific type of Pokemon, specific type of era, and for some of you, it might just be specifically about the artwork, having different types of artworks, or having all scenery, underwater cards, So this is a nice one to add for some variety, I feel like. This is a unique take on Shiftry, which I love. Next up, we have another, speaking of different takes on how to do artworks, this is the Braviary from Surging Sparks, and I am crazy surprised that this card is only going for $4.72 currently. Of all the cards, I genuinely thought this would pick up more steam in the set, but obviously the big SIRs are really dominating every sort of conversation in that set. Even the Latias is not explosive. It's not debuting higher than what the Groudon. It's not shooting up beyond the Groudon and stuff like that. So for Braviary, we have this interesting painting style artwork, which I love. I actually mentioned in Surging Sparks how they actually have like 3 different birds that they did different artworks for, and I really loved it. This one in particular, Braviary, is a quite loved Pokemon from the Unova region. Black and White was the era where they introduced the most number of new Pokemon, as far as I recall. And so it was a very ambitious era, and this was one of the Pokemon that really I loved it for the, I don't really love Unpheasant, to be honest, but Braviary really hit home. It was a great artwork. Next up, we have Zeraora from Stellar Crown, another card that's still, we're still under the $10 mark, y'all. We are gonna breach that barrier soon, but right here, still $7.05. If we look at the most recent sales, actually, we'll see that, you know, $6.85, $7.75, $6.98. It's more like in the $7. It's more like under $7, to be honest. And if you didn't realize, this card seems to be a continuation of a Crown Zenith card, one of the legendary dogs, which is going to be Raikou. And you see the background is very, very similar. It almost looks like they're traveling through the same sort of dimension or portal. It's quite a beautiful artwork, very, very vibrant, I have to say. Different colors splashed around in the art, and I actually pulled this from Build and Battle, and I was very, very happy because I thought this was one of the best artworks from art rares from Stellar Crown. Now, I'm not going to say the Squirtle and Bulbasaur aren't enchanting and phenomenally cute and, you know, up everyone's alley, but those are going for $40 or so. Whereas you can spend $7 and get this card, another great pop color, mythical Pokemon. But yeah, speaking of a little bit of value, nothing crazy to be honest. So yeah, great choice for one's collection. Next up, we have Scizor, and I know this is a card that a lot of people love, but thank goodness because Obsidian Flames is not really out of this world expensive. And I'm not talking about the booster box, which has recently caught steam. I'm talking about more so like the booster packs and the set in general. It's not very expensive. You know, even the top card is like $75, which is a value that's been surpassed by many art rares already. And so if we take a look at this, Scizor particularly, if we take a look at the near mint, we see that it's grown a bit, but it's actually falling back down. It's $11 if you want to see here specifically $10.97, and a lot of people love this artwork because Scizor is a very, very big Pokemon. A lot of people love it. For some, it's actually their favorite Pokemon, and we see a little duel happening here, which is pretty fun. It's almost like they struck each other and are in their final pose to see who is going to fall down first. And we got the crimson background. Almost looks like apocalyptic world. A different artwork style. Once again, we have not the crisp lines and, you know, solid colors. We have more of a like tainted artwork. You know, Scizor is not pure red with just shading. It's got this sort of like melange of oranges and red sort of mixed into its claws, and it makes it look almost grunge-like, which I love about this card. Even if you look at the wings, you have this greenish, you know, tinge to it, which is marred by the purely dominated red artwork in this, which is really fun. I love that artwork. Next, we have Cleffa, which is actually a very, very cute card. I loved this when it first came out. You know, I'm a sucker for water cards. And I guess this does have a hint of water to it, sort of like a very, very shallow body of water where it's just touching the tips of your feet. So Cleffa is making a wish upon this shooting star with its body reflected in this big pond. And I have to say, it's one of the simplest artworks I've seen and one of the biggest like hits for me. I adore it because this is more of a scenery card, 100%. We see a sunrise on the horizon, and the simplicity of it, but yet the beauty of the sort of night sky is really captivated here. We also see that a little bit of backstory to Cleffa. I guess it's considered, or Clefairy or Clefable, one of the evolutions, or maybe all of them, considered to be Pokemon from space. So perhaps it's making a wish to return to his homeland. Who knows? But it's a little fun take on Cleffa. And if we actually read the description, it says, because of its unusual star-like silhouette, people believe that it came here on a meteor. So there you go. That's been that was validated. Actually, that's kind of funny. But yeah, great card. Still very, very low compared to some of the other crazily expensive cards in terms of art rares from the Scarlet and Violet era. Remember, Magikarp is retailing for above 200. We have Groudon well above 70. Eevee, which is absolutely exploding from Twilight Masquerade, and so many more art rares such as PCTBs and so forth. So this is still a great price, $17. Big jump, but a worthy addition to your collection. And remember, if you're not keen on spending $17 on a card, but you absolutely adore the artwork, and you're not really like you just care about the artwork, I'd suggest get Japanese. You know, there's nothing wrong in getting those cards. For instance, for me, this Cleffa, I didn't really feel like getting the English one when I was exclusively like happy about the artwork. I wasn't getting it for the sake of an investment, this Cleffa, so I went and picked up the Japanese version for $4, and you know, it's not like the price went up, didn't go down. You know, that's something you can rely on, I guess. If you get a card for $3-4, you know, expect the drop to be maximum $1, maybe the growth to be $3-4 most of the time in Japanese art rares. But the artwork is in my binder now. I can take a look at it whenever I want, appreciate it. Next up, we have Deerling, another card that's definitely up there in value, $18. And if y'all don't know, there's actually connected artwork. Deerling, this is the Sawsbuck that actually connects to the Deerling artwork. We see the different seasons. Now, the fun part about Deerling and Sawsbuck is they change their appearance based off of the season. So you have the autumn Deerling here, and we have the autumn Sawsbuck here. But the thing about these cards are, if it goes into the winter realm, then it'll transform. I almost wish that we saw the Deerling transforming slowly as it hit the winter slopes or the winter, scene. And there's also a really, really great episode. I remember back in the day when I watched it, Black and White had an episode where all 4 seasons of Sawsbuck were caught in a single frame, which makes no sense, right? This is a seasonally changing Pokemon. But it was almost this like magical little pond. It was near this magical little pond where these Sawsbuck all had different artworks and stuff. And I loved that scene. That was a really mystical, magical moment in the show. I remember I liked it quite a bit. But anyway, getting off that tangent, the Sawsbuck is going for $26, $26.75 more precisely. It's been climbing slowly but steadily over the past 3 months. Again, October, I spoke about this in my last episode. October was kind of a sweet spot where a lot of cards start to shoot up in value. But I still think this Deerling, being 18, 30, it's still far less than the Sawsbuck. And as a connector artwork, most people, if they have the Sawsbuck or Deerling, they'll want the counterpart. This is a great card to pick up. For number 3, we have Dragonair from 151. This is definitely a bigger jump. Again, we're back to a higher value. We're getting to $25 now. Dragonair is a very, very loved Pokemon. Gen 1, of course, was there in the base set, evolves into Dragonite, one of the most popular and recognizable dragon types or Pokemon in general. And again, water card. Yeah, I know I might be a little bit partial here, but I actually made a statement a few videos ago, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, where I was saying Dragonair is a great option, a great card to pick up. It's actually grown since I mentioned it. I feel like it's still got room to grow, particularly with 151. I feel like reprints are definitely going to be less common now that it's been a while since the set's been out. We've seen different product releases in Costco. We've seen some reprints of certain products, but nothing like crazy. I don't know, some people distinguish like restock, reprint. I'm just saying there was more product made available at different periods of time, and the market just swallowed it. 151 hits on the nostalgia factors and everything, but it's also a really fun set to open. You have more of a chance to pull some of the cards you want than a set like Prismatic Evolutions, which is making people squeeze out tears from their eyes as they open packs and packs and packs and not pulling a single SAR, no art rares in that set. So this is just a far superior set in my opinion for the opening experience. All those factors together, and if you take a look at 151 in general, it is actually, compared to some of the other sets, I expected, the Blastoise and Venusaur would be above 100, but, I'm actually happy to see it lower. I don't want cards to be so expensive that they're completely inaccessible. If you love the Blastoise, it's a great card to pick up. I don't think you'll go wrong with that. If you love the Venusaur, that's great. Charizard only picked up around October, otherwise it was in the 110, range. But anyway, speaking of the artwork specifically, we have Charmander 51, Squirtle 48, we have Bulbasaur 41, Charmeleon 37, Ivysaur, Pikachu, Wartortle, and then we have Dragonair, which we see is substantially less expensive, almost half the value, a little bit less than half the value of Charmander. So again, a great card to pick up. If you love Dragonair, if you love 151, this is a great card because it also has prospects for growth in the future that are not only driven for the specific card, but because the entire set is so desirable. People who want the master set will have to collect this Dragonair, have to collect all the other high-end cards. And so because this as a set was so beloved, there's a high probability that cards will in general move up in this section. Not going to say it's not going to drop. There has to be a market correction at some point. Things are just exploding too much. I think they will drop a little bit at some point. When that is, we don't know. It's most likely going to be when the Pokemon Center sort of recorrects in certain areas and starts to dump more product. not only after release, but during pre-release time frames. I think that'll be a time when things start to sort of ease up a bit, drop a little bit. I'm not saying it's gonna go to like $2, but I'm just saying recorrect it in order. But moving on, Dragonair is a great option if you want something a little bit more affordable. Again, going to number 2, we have Chansey, which is $15. A card that I still can't believe is so undervalued. Twilight Masquerade is quite a popular set because of the Greninja, now the EV, which is absolutely exploding, probably because of Prismatic Evolution as well, but also it's a beautiful card. I picked up this card particularly in Japanese for $4. I wasn't picking this card up as a growth piece, but I certainly believe there's potential for it. Tons of Gen 1 Pokemon, except for Blissey, really. We have 5 Gen 1 Pokemon here. Ditto, Psyduck, we have Bellsprout, we have, what is this guy's name? Snorlax, and then we have Chansey, which is about to drop a bunch of boxes, jumping and running through what would appear to be the Pokemon Center. And a very clean artwork. I don't, unlike the Scizor, this is just like sleek, clean colors with some shading to add some three-dimensional aspects to great artwork. Love it. And then moving on to number 1, we have Ninetales from Obsidian Flames. Again, the set hasn't exploded, so I am happy to say that this card is still reasonably priced at $21.64. A great artwork. I have advocated getting this card in the past, and there's no question as to why. It's a beautiful card. The light is literally shining through these little holes in the trees, almost making it look like fire. Bits of fire, flecks of fire in the trees, and then illuminating the ground in those little same shapes. We also have Ninetales beautifully outlined with the glow of the sun. I mean, there are very few cards that I feel compete with this beautiful artwork, and is so reasonably priced. For me, I am not going to try and pick up a Magikarp at $200 plus. I'm not going to try and pick up Groudon at $70. I'm trying to find the cards that are still undervalued that make sense for me as a purchase and make a wonderful addition to my binder. And that's the way I wanted to make this video. I wanted to show y'all cards that I think are still accessible, have potential for growth, but also are just great additions to your collection, even if you decide to not sell this. If it's just something that you want to have, to look at, display, maybe even grade and have in a slab and have it there in your like office. Just keep it there, look at it, enjoy it. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed the video today. Let me know in the comments if there's any cards you think I missed, anything that I should make in a future video. If you have any ideas that you'd like me to talk about, research, be happy to do it. I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next one.